The gentle giants, the Galactic Federation, had always seen humans as the helpful neighbors of the cosmos. For 3 decades since first contact, humanity had earned a reputation as skilled traders, innovative engineers, and surprisingly effective mediators. Their ships carried medicine to plague-stricken worlds, their diplomats resolved territorial disputes with endless patience, and their merchants somehow made trade profitable for everyone involved. Ambassador Kareth of the Zenthri Collective often joked that humans were like friendly pets who had accidentally learned to build spaceships. The comparison always drew laughter at diplomatic gatherings, especially from the more militaristic species who viewed humanity's peaceful nature as charming but ultimately naive. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony, watching the spectacular light show of plasma fire exchange between Vorthak warships and a small defensive fleet from the Epsilon colonies. The battle raged in the asteroid field beyond Kepler Station, where thousands of refugees had sought shelter from the expanding conflict. Captain, we're receiving distress calls from 17 different ships, reported Lieutenant Chen from the communication station. His voice carried the weight of watching helpless civilians die, while politics prevented intervention. That Sarah's jaw tightened as she watched a Vorthak destroyer target an unarmed transport vessel. The explosion bloomed like a deadly flower against the black of space, taking 300 souls with it. She had seen too many such flowers in recent months. Send another message to the Vorthak fleet commander, she ordered. Remind them that attacking civilian vessels violates 17 different interstellar accords. Communications Officer Chen's expression showed what he thought of that strategy, but he followed orders. The response came back within minutes, transmitted on an open channel so everyone could hear the Vorthak commander's contempt. Tell the humans to return to their merchant routes. General Thyrak's guttural voice filled the bridge. This is not their concern. These colonies refuse to pay tribute to the Empire. Their fate is sealed. Sarah had dealt with Thyrak before. The Vorthak general commanded the Third Imperial Fleet, with the kind of ruthless efficiency that had conquered 40 systems in the past year. He was intelligent, disciplined, and absolutely convinced that might made right. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Roberts spoke up from the tactical station. Our weapon systems are charged and ready. We have enough firepower to disable their lead vessels. Sarah looked at her tactical officer with a mixture of appreciation and regret. Roberts had served in the Federation Defense Corps before joining the diplomatic fleet. He understood warfare in ways that made him invaluable and occasionally dangerous. Stand down, Commander. We're here as peacekeepers, not combatants. The order tasted bitter in her mouth, but it reflected humanity's role in the galactic community. Humans were the ones who talked, who negotiated, who found peaceful solutions. They weren't the ones who started shooting first. 3 hours later, the massacre was complete. The Epsilon colonies had fallen, and their defense fleet was nothing but debris. The refugee station sent out one last transmission before Vorthak boarding parties silenced it forever. Sarah received the casualty reports in her ready room, each number representing families destroyed, children orphaned, futures erased. The final tally showed 43,000 dead, with another 20,000 taken as prisoners to Vorthak labor camps. The Federation Council wants a full report, Roberts informed her as he entered with a datapad. They're particularly interested in why we didn't intervene more actively. Sarah almost laughed at the absurdity. More actively? We tried everything short of opening fire. Diplomatic channels, economic pressure, appeals to interstellar law. The Vorthak ignored all of it. Maybe it's time to try something the Vorthak won't ignore, Robert suggested quietly. Before Sarah could respond, her communication system chimed with an incoming message from Earth. The holographic display showed Admiral Jackson Torres, the stern-faced commander of Earth's Defense Command. His expression was grim, even by his usual standards. Captain Mitchell, I've reviewed your reports from the Epsilon incident. The situation is escalating beyond acceptable parameters. Sarah straightened in her chair. Torres rarely contacted field commanders directly unless something significant was happening. Sir, we followed all diplomatic protocols. The Vort hack simply refused to listen to reason. That's the problem, Captain. They're not listening because they don't think we have anything to say that matters. Torres paused, and Sarah caught something unusual in his expression. I'm recalling you to Earth immediately. There are developments you need to be briefed on. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah with more questions than answers. In her 7 years commanding diplomatic vessels, she had never been recalled for an emergency briefing. Something was changing, and she suspected it involved more than just failed negotiations. 2 days later, Sarah stood in the briefing room at Earth Defense Command headquarters in Geneva. The room was filled with officers she recognized but had rarely seen together. Admiral Torres commanded the room's attention, but Sarah noticed Colonel Maria Santos from Special Operations, Captain David Park from the Technology Division, and Dr. Elena Vasquez from the Strategic Planning Department. Ladies and gentlemen, Torres began, the Vort hack Empire has made their intentions clear. They consider human diplomatic efforts to be interference in their expansion plans. Intelligence indicates they're planning to target human colonies next. The holographic display showed a map of human space with several systems marked in red. Sarah recognized all of them as peaceful settlements with minimal defensive capabilities. Sir, she spoke up, surely the Federation Council will intervene if the Vort hack target human worlds directly. Torres exchanged glances with the other officers before responding. The Council has made it clear that they consider this a regional conflict. They won't risk a larger war to protect human interests. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Humanity had spent decades building relationships, providing aid, and maintaining peace throughout the galaxy. The idea that their allies would abandon them when it mattered most was almost incomprehensible. Colonel Santos leaned forward. The Vort hack aren't the only threat. Intelligence suggests that other aggressive species are watching the situation carefully. If humanity appears weak, we could face multiple invasions simultaneously. Dr. Vasquez activated another display showing economic and political analysis. Our peaceful reputation has made us valuable as mediators and traders, but it's also made us appear vulnerable. Several species view us as easy targets for expansion or resource acquisition. Sarah felt a cold understanding settle in her mind. You're saying that our commitment to peace has painted targets on our backs. That's exactly what I'm saying, Torres confirmed. And it's time we corrected that misunderstanding. Captain Park stood and moved to a secure terminal. For the past 15 years, while our diplomatic corps has been building relationships, our research and development teams have been building something else. The main display switched to show technical specifications that made Sarah's breath catch. The ships looked like nothing in the current human fleet, sleek and deadly with weapon systems she didn't recognize. Project Prometheus, Torres explained, our contingency plan for the day, when talking stopped working. Sarah studied the designs with growing amazement. These specifications show capabilities beyond anything currently deployed by major military powers. How is this possible? Dr. Vasquez smiled for the first time since Sarah had entered the room. Humanity has always been good at solving problems. We just usually solve them quietly. While other species focused on intimidation and territorial expansion, we focused on innovation and efficiency. The briefing continued for 3 hours, revealing the scope of humanity's hidden preparation. Advanced manufacturing facilities hidden in asteroid bases. Defensive networks that could appear anywhere in human space within hours. Weapon technologies that turn peaceful human innovations into tools of war. The question now, Torres concluded, is whether we reveal these capabilities through demonstration or through action. Sarah looked around the room at officers who had spent their careers avoiding this moment. They were diplomats and peacekeepers who had been forced to become something else by a galaxy that mistook kindness for weakness. Admiral, she said finally, what do you need me to do? Torres' expression showed both regret and determination. Captain Mitchell, you're going to deliver a message to the Vorthack Empire. But this time, you're going to make sure they listen. As Sarah left the briefing room, she carried with her the weight of humanity's choice. For 30 years, they had proven they could be the galaxy's peacemakers. Now, they would prove they could be something far more dangerous when peace was no longer an option. The age of human diplomacy was ending. The age of human strength was about to begin. When Patience runs out, the medical convoy consisted of 12 ships carrying supplies to refugee camps scattered across the Helix Nebula. Dr. Marcus Webb commanded the lead vessel, the U.S. Mercy, which housed advanced surgical facilities and a team of the galaxy's most skilled trauma surgeons. For 2 decades, Webb had led humanitarian missions into conflict zones, saving lives regardless of species or political affiliation. The convoy moved through neutral space under full humanitarian protection, their hulls marked with the distinctive red crosses that supposedly guaranteed safe passage under interstellar law. Webb had led similar missions through active war zones dozens of times without incident. Every major power in the galaxy respected the medical services neutrality. Dr. Webb called Navigator Singh from his station. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Torres." Webb frowned as he accepted the communication. Torres rarely contacted medical missions directly unless something significant was happening. The Admiral's face appeared on the holographic display, his expression more serious than usual. "Dr. Webb, intelligence indicates increased Vorthack activity in your operational area. I'm authorizing you to request military escort if you feel it's necessary." Webb appreciated the concern, but he shook his head. "Admiral, we've operated in contested space for years without military protection. Our neutrality is our best defense. Adding warships to our convoy would make us appear to be combatants." Torres paused before responding. "Doctor, the situation has changed. The Vorthack no longer seem to respect traditional humanitarian protections. With respect, sir, they've never attacked a properly marked medical convoy. Our mission is too important to compromise with unnecessary military posturing." After Torres ended the transmission, Webb returned his attention to the refugee crisis reports flowing in from across the region. The Vorthack expansion had displaced millions of beings, creating a humanitarian disaster that stretched relief organizations beyond their limits. Commander Lisa Rodriguez, Webb's second-in-command, approached with a concerned expression. "Marcus, maybe we should consider the Admiral's offer. The Vorthack have been increasingly aggressive toward non-military targets." Webb had served with Rodriguez for 8 years, and he trusted her judgment completely. But he also understood the delicate balance that kept medical personnel safe in war zones. "Lisa, the moment we accept military escort, we become legitimate targets. Our protection comes from being clearly non-combatant." 6 hours later, the convoy was intercepted by a Vorthack battle group. 3 heavy cruisers emerged from hyperspace in a classic attack formation, their weapon systems already charging. Webb immediately ordered all ships to transmit their medical identification codes and humanitarian status. The response came from General Thyrak himself. "Human vessels, you are operating in Vorthack territorial space without authorization. Prepare to be boarded and searched." Webb activated the main communication system, ensuring his words reached every ship in both fleets. "General Thyrak, this is Dr. Marcus Webb commanding Medical Convoy 77 Alpha. We are operating under full humanitarian protection, carrying medical supplies to refugee camps. We pose no military threat and request safe passage under the Geneva Medical Accords." Thyrak's laugh was harsh and dismissive. "The Geneva Accords apply only to civilized conflicts, Doctor. This is conquest. Surrender your vessels immediately or face the consequences." Webb felt ice form in his stomach, but he maintained his professional composure. "General, these supplies are destined for refugee camps containing Vorthack citizens as well as other species. Interfering with this mission will result in unnecessary deaths among your own people. Those refugees are traitors who fled instead of submitting to imperial rule. They deserve whatever fate awaits them. The words revealed a level of cruelty that shocked even Webb, who had seen the worst of warfare across the galaxy. But he continued trying to reach whatever humanity might exist in the Vorthak commander. General, I'm transmitting the complete manifest of our cargo. Medical supplies, surgical equipment, vaccines for children. Nothing that could possibly threaten your military operations. The manifest transmission completed, and Webb waited for Thyrak's response. Around him, his bridge crew watched their sensors as the Vorthak ships maintained their threatening positions. Your supplies could aid enemy combatants, Thyrak finally replied. Therefore, they are contraband. Surrender your ships or watch them burn. Webb made the hardest decision of his medical career. All ships, prepare for emergency scatter pattern. Transmit our full mission logs to Earth Command immediately. Before he could give the order to flee, the Vorthak opened fire. The first salvo targeted the convoy's engines, not their hulls. Webb realized with growing horror that Thyrak intended to disable them for capture rather than destruction. But the second salvo showed different intentions as plasma beams lanced through the medical bay of the U.S. Charity. They're targeting our medical facilities specifically, Rodriguez reported, her voice tight with outrage. They know exactly what they're destroying. Webb watched his life's work burn around him as ship after ship took critical damage. The Vorthak were systematically destroying everything that made the convoy valuable for humanitarian purposes while leaving the hulls intact. Doctor, called Communications Officer Park, I'm receiving surrender offers from the other ship commanders. They want to know your orders. Webb looked at the tactical display, showing 8 ships disabled, 3 destroyed, and hundreds of medical personnel dead or dying. The supplies that could have saved thousands of refugee lives were scattered debris cooling in space. Tell them to document everything, he ordered quietly. Make sure Earth knows exactly what happened here. The final transmission from a U.S. Mercy reached Earth 6 hours later. Dr. Marcus Webb's voice, calm despite the plasma fire consuming a ship around him, delivered a message that would change everything. Admiral Torres, this is Dr. Webb final transmission. The Vorthak have systematically destroyed Medical Convoy 77 Alpha despite our full humanitarian status. They specifically targeted our medical facilities and supplies while leaving weapons untouched. 347 medical personnel are dead. They called our patients traitors who deserve to die. The transmission paused as an explosion shook Webb's ship. When he continued, his voice carried a weight that made everyone who heard it remember his words forever. Admiral, I've spent 20 years saving lives across this galaxy. I've treated wounded Vorthak soldiers with the same care I gave human patients. I believed that medical neutrality meant something. I was wrong. Another pause shorter this time. Tell my wife I love her. Tell Earth Command that some things are worth fighting for. And tell the galaxy that humanity tried being the healers. Maybe it's time we remembered how to be something else. The transmission ended in static as the U.S. Mercy finally succumbed to plasma fire. Admiral Torres received the message in his command center, surrounded by officers who had served with Webb on previous missions. The silence that followed the transmission was broken only by the quiet sound of keyboards as communication officers began routing the message to every human colony and ship in the galaxy. Sir, Captain Park spoke first, his voice carefully controlled. All Project Prometheus assets are ready for activation. We can begin deployment within 4 hours. Torres nodded slowly, his mind already shifting from peacekeeping to warfare. Contact Captain Mitchell. Tell her the diplomatic mission is canceled. She's now commanding Battle Group Alpha. Colonel Santos stepped forward. What about the Federation Council? They'll demand explanations for any military action we take. Torres turned to face the tactical display, showing human space surrounded by increasingly aggressive neighbors. Red zones marked Vorthak advance positions, yellow areas indicated species considering territorial expansion, and green zones showed the few remaining allies humanity could count on. The Federation Council had their chance to maintain peace, he said quietly. Dr. Webb and his people died following their rules. Now we follow ours. Dr. Vasquez activated her terminal and began broadcasting coded signals to hidden facilities throughout human space. Project Prometheus activation sequence initiated. All defense platforms are coming online. The transformation began immediately. Manufacturing centers hidden in asteroid belts began producing the warships that had existed only as blueprints. Defensive installations that had masqueraded as research stations revealed their true capabilities. Trade vessels docked to human colonies to offload civilian cargo and take on military hardware. Admiral reported Captain Park, "We're receiving acknowledgement signals from all Prometheus assets. The fleet will be ready for deployment in 36 hours. Torres studied the strategic display with the eye of someone who had spent decades planning for this moment, while hoping it would never come. The galaxy had mistaken human kindness for weakness, humanitarian aid for vulnerability, and diplomatic patience for cowardice. Open a channel to all human colonies and vessels, he ordered. It's time they understood the choice we've been forced to make. The transmission went out on all frequencies, reaching every human settlement from the core worlds to the frontier colonies. Torres' image appeared on screens.
Across human space, his expression showing the weight of command and the burden of necessary decisions. Citizens of Earth and her colonies, this is Admiral Torres. Today, the Vorthak Empire murdered 347 medical personnel who were carrying supplies to refugee camps. Dr. Marcus Webb and his people died following the laws of civilized warfare, while their attackers ignored every principle of humanitarian protection. He paused, letting the reality sink in for populations who had lived their entire lives believing in the power of peaceful resolution. For 30 years, humanity has served as mediators, healers, and builders of peace throughout this galaxy. We have proven that diplomacy and cooperation can solve most conflicts. But we have also learned that some conflicts cannot be solved with words. The display behind Torres showed images from the destroyed medical convoy, the burning refugee camps, and the expanding zones of Vorthak conquest. The Galactic Federation has made it clear that they will not risk war to protect humanitarian missions or human colonies. We are on our own. Therefore, we will defend ourselves. Torres's expression hardened into something that would have surprised species who thought they knew humanity. I am announcing the activation of Project Prometheus, our defensive contingency program. For the past 15 years, while our diplomats worked for peace, our engineers and strategists prepared for war. The galaxy is about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was never our inability to fight. It was our choice not to. The transmission ended with coordinates and timing for a demonstration that would reshape galactic politics forever. Humanity had spent 3 decades proving they could be the galaxy's conscience. Now they would prove they could be its sword. The awakening of Earth's children, the demonstration began at exactly 1200 hours Galactic Standard Time, simultaneously across 47 star systems. Captain Sarah Mitchell watched from the bridge of her newly commissioned vessel, the UES Defiance, as humanity revealed what they had been building in the shadows. The ship itself was a masterpiece of human innovation, sleek where other designs were bulky, elegant where they were crude. Its weapon systems were based on the same gravity manipulation technology humans used for mining, but refined into instruments of precise destruction. Its shields drew power from the same fusion cores that powered human cities, but configured to deflect energy that could crack planets. Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander Roberts, all Prometheus assets are reporting ready status. The demonstration fleet is in position. Sarah nodded, though her attention remained focused on the tactical display showing the positions of observers from every major galactic power. The Federation Council had sent ships to witness humanity's response to the medical convoy massacre. Even the Vorthak had dispatched vessels, probably expecting another round of diplomatic protests. Begin Phase 1, Sarah ordered. Across human space, installations that had appeared to be research stations or mining facilities began their transformation. Weapons platforms unfolded from asteroid surfaces where they had been hidden for years. Manufacturing centers revealed their true purposes as military shipyards. Defense networks that had been disguised as communication arrays demonstrated their ability to coordinate attacks across multiple star systems simultaneously. The scale of the revelation was staggering. Humanity had not built a few secret weapons or hidden a small fleet. They had constructed an entirely parallel military infrastructure, complete with logistics, command systems, and production capabilities that rivaled the largest military powers in the galaxy. Admiral Torres's voice reached every observing vessel through carefully positioned communication arrays. Ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed beings of the Galactic Federation, for 30 years, humanity has participated in your political system as junior partners. We accepted restrictions on our expansion, limitations on our military development, and oversight of our colonial activities. The communication paused as the first phase of the demonstration continued. Asteroid mining platforms revealed themselves as mobile weapon stations. Trade vessels docked at human colonies, offloaded civilian cargo, and launched as fully armed warships. The transformation was so complete that many observers initially thought they were witnessing an invasion rather than a revelation. We accepted these limitations because we believed in the principles of cooperative governance and peaceful resolution of conflicts. We proved that disagreements could be settled through negotiation rather than warfare. We demonstrated that different species could work together for mutual benefit. Phase 2 began as the newly revealed fleet began maneuvers that showcased capabilities.
No one had suspected. Human ships moved with precision that made military formations look like amateur displays. Their coordination was so perfect that individual vessels seemed to function as parts of a single vast organism. However, Torres continued, recent events have made it clear that not all species share our commitment to peaceful coexistence. The destruction of Medical Convoy 77 Alpha was not an act of war. It was an act of barbarism that violated every principle of civilized conduct. Captain Mitchell watched as Vorthack observer ships tried to analyze the human vessels surrounding them. The alien vessels were clearly struggling to understand what they were seeing. Human ship designs followed no known engineering principles, incorporated technologies that shouldn't have existed, and demonstrated capabilities that defied conventional tactical doctrine. The Vorthack Empire has declared that humanitarian law does not apply to their conquest campaigns. They have specifically targeted medical personnel and refugee populations. They have made it clear that they consider mercy a weakness to be exploited. Phase 3 of the demonstration began as human weapons systems activated, but instead of targeting the observer vessels, they began precision strikes on uninhabited asteroids throughout the demonstration area. The results were spectacular displays of controlled destruction that showcased both power and accuracy. The gravity-based weapon systems could shatter solid rock or delicately carve complex patterns with equal precision. Energy weapons could vaporize targets or perform surgical strikes that left adjacent objects completely untouched. The demonstration showed that human military technology was not crude force, but refined instrument. Therefore, Torres announced, humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Federation's authority regarding our military affairs. We will continue to participate in diplomatic and commercial activities, but we will no longer accept limitations on our ability to defend ourselves and those under our protection. The fourth phase involved a direct challenge to Vorthack forces. Human ships moved to positions throughout Vorthack-controlled space, not aggressively, but with clear intent. They positioned themselves near conquered worlds where refugee populations were suffering under Imperial rule. General Thyrac's response came within minutes, transmitted on open channels so everyone could hear his outrage. Human vessels, withdraw immediately from Imperial space or face the consequences. Your pathetic demonstration does not intimidate the Vorthack Empire. Captain Mitchell smiled at the familiar bluster. Thyrac was about to learn the difference between intimidation and education. General Thyrac, she responded calmly, this is Captain Sarah Mitchell. I believe we've had diplomatic exchanges before. This time, however, I'm not here to negotiate. Her tactical officer began target acquisition as Mitchell continued speaking. You ordered the destruction of a medical convoy carrying supplies to refugee camps. You specifically targeted medical facilities and personnel. You called refugees traitors who deserve to die. The human ships surrounding Thyrak's position began a coordination display that made their earlier maneuvers look simple. They moved with mathematical precision, each vessel occupying a position that maximized tactical advantage while minimizing friendly fire risks. Under the authority granted by Earth Defense Command, I am placing you under arrest for war crimes against sentient beings. Surrender your vessels immediately. Thyrak's laugh was transmitted throughout the star system. You dare threaten the Third Imperial Fleet with your merchant vessels? Open fire. Show these humans the price of interfering with Imperial justice. The Vordhak fleet opened fire with every weapon they possessed, filling space with enough energy to destroy conventional battle groups. But the human ships simply weren't there when the weapons arrived. They had moved with impossible speed and precision, repositioning themselves while maintaining perfect formation integrity. The return fire was brief and surgical. Human weapons systems targeted specific systems on Vordhak vessels rather than attempting wholesale destruction. Engine cores were disabled without causing explosions. Weapon systems were neutralized without compromising life support. Within minutes, the entire Third Imperial Fleet was helpless but intact. General Thyrak, Mitchell announced, "Your vessels are disabled, but your crews are unharmed. This is how civilized beings conduct warfare. Medical teams are standing by to provide aid if needed." The silence that followed was broken by Admiral Torres' voice reaching every observer throughout the demonstration area. "The galaxy has seen what humanity can do when we choose to abandon our commitment to peaceful resolution. We can disable your fleets, neutralize your weapons, and occupy your territories. But that is not who we are." Phase 5 began as human medical ships moved toward the disabled Vordhak vessels. The same red crosses that had marked Dr. Webb's destroyed convoy now approached the beings who had murdered him, offering aid to enemies who had shown no mercy. "We are returning to our role as healers and builders of peace," Torres continued. "But we are doing so from a position of strength rather than vulnerability. Any species that threatens humanitarian missions, targets civilian populations, or attempts to exploit our commitment to peace will discover that we are far more dangerous as enemies than we ever were valuable as allies." The demonstration concluded with human ships escorting Vordhak survivors to the nearest Federation station for medical treatment and war crimes tribunals. The message was clear. Humanity would not abandon their principles, but they would no longer allow those principles to be used against them. Captain Mitchell remained on the bridge as the fleet began returning to normal patrol patterns. The galaxy had been transformed in a single day, not through conquest or destruction, but through revelation and restraint. Captain Roberts reported, "We're receiving communications from Federation Council representatives. They want to schedule immediate negotiations regarding humanity's status within the organization." Mitchell almost smiled at the sudden urgency. For 30 years, the Council had treated human concerns as minor issues to be addressed when convenient. Now, they wanted immediate meetings. "Tell them we'll attend their session," she replied, "but not as junior partners seeking approval. We'll participate as equals determining mutual policy." The transformation was complete. Humanity had proven they could be the galaxy's conscience and its sword simultaneously. They had demonstrated that mercy was not weakness and that patience was not passivity. Dr. Marcus Webb and his medical teams had died, proving that some principles were worth dying for. The demonstration had shown that some principles were also worth living for, but only when supported by the strength to defend them. Throughout human space, colonies that had lived in fear of invasion now went about their daily lives knowing they were protected. Medical convoys resumed their missions with the quiet confidence that came from knowing their sacrifice would not be ignored. Diplomats returned to negotiating tables with the knowledge that their words carried the weight of demonstrated capability. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength was never their inability to fight. It was their choice not to fight until fighting became the only way to preserve what they valued most, and Every species would remember the day they learned the difference between cannot and will not.